Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
Welcome to the podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you on a Wednesday evening, a late Wednesday show. We're recording this after watching UCF women's basketball just trounce Houston in a dominant defensive performance in the American Athletic Conference tournament. We'll talk about their run to the final, which will be Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Break that down for you. Also, men's basketball traveling out to Fort Worth. They will play tomorrow just before the women in their first game of the tournament. And then we also got plenty to talk about in all the other sports as well, including some updates on soccer, volleyball with a big series coming up this weekend. Lots to talk about. How are you, gentlemen? Boy, that was quite the suffocation that UCF applied on Houston tonight, wasn't it?
It's not bad when you can turn the ball over 23 times and still thoroughly dominate your opponent.
Yeah, the 23 turnovers, Murph, it's not what you want. But
yeah. Hey, look, they're playing a late night shift. In fairness, all right, it's really late night. Like this is the latest we've ever recorded the Banneret in its history.
This is quite late. So if Murph starts to drop off there, you'll know why. So let's dive right in here. All right, 61-39 the final. UCF wins their semifinal game over Houston to get to the American Athletic Conference Championship game against USF, who struggled mightily with Tulane earlier today, but still gutted out a win. Neither team shot particularly well in that game, but UCF in this game, boy, they put the clamps on Houston. This is the number 2 scoring offense in the American, the Houston Cougars, averaging 68 points a game. UCF holds them to 39 total. They were 14 of 53 from the field, 2 of 16 from beyond the arc. UCF also dominated the boards, out-rebounding Houston 45 to 26. Diamond Battles was the night's leading scorer for the second straight night. 14 points on 5 of 8 shooting. Also, Masseny Kaba had 13 and 9 rebounds. She was 6 of 10 from the floor. 10 points each for Alicia Lewis, although Lish didn't really have a very good night shooting. She only made 1 3 from the floor, but she gets 7 of 8 free throws. And Brittany Smith was pretty solid down low as well. 10 points, 5 rebounds as well. So, Eric, I'll start with you. This UCF team right now, they're peaking on defense. And you brought up the point after they finished the regular season with the victory over USF that, what was it? UCF had outscored the Bulls by, what was it? You said 27 points in the finals in the last 6 quarters that they played against them. So if it wasn't for that bad first half in Tampa, this might be a whole different narrative heading into this tournament. But hey, here we go. Rubber match in Fort Worth. So what did we learn tonight? What do you expect in the championship game?
We learned that the 2 best teams are playing for the championship. That's clear. And that sounds redundant, but I do think that's important to bring up for the committee. Like, there should be 2 teams in the NCAA tournament from this conference, and they both are from the state of Florida. That, to me, was an exclamation point. And I think UCF sent that message because there have been some chatter, and I was in this camp about the possibility of Houston jumping UCF, especially had Houston beaten UCF, of making the NCAA tournament because from a geography standpoint, it's a lot easier for the NCAA to bus Houston to San Antonio, which is where the entire women's tournament's going to be held. Not all San Antonio, but basically the state of Texas. Than to fly UCF in. That chatter has been going on. I've talked to people in Texas. That talk was going on. And I think UCF knew about it. I think UCF wanted to make sure there was no doubt about the fact they were the superior team to Houston and that any of that conversation would go quietly. So they accomplished that. And let's be real. Now we have a UCF-USF matchup, which in my opinion is not only the biggest women's basketball game in the history of this rivalry, the War on I-4, but it is also one of the top 5 biggest War on I-4 sporting events of all time, period. Behind the 2017 football game, which is obviously number 1, and then I would put the 3 softball regionals that they played against each other, 2005, 2008, 2012, behind the football. And then this women's basketball game is right there. This is right there. This is a championship game. Both of these teams have been knocking on the door, and they've always had to run through that UConn roadblock. Well, UConn's no longer in this league. You add to the fact of the controversy how the season ended with USF being rewarded the championship. They didn't win the championship. Let's make this clear. They did not win the championship. They were rewarded the championship via the forfeit. And for that garbage site, our boys, the Daily Stampede, or should I say the wannabe Bannerets, to even acknowledge that championship's embarrassing. Man. But that's a whole other story.
Oh, boy.
But here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. All of that gets decided where it should be decided, and that's on the court on Thursday night. And that's what it is. Either USF will prove that they were the legit best team in the league and they were the champions if they beat UCF, or UCF beats them and shows that they were robbed of a regular season title, but they win the one that matters because this championship is the one that sends the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. This is a huge event, the biggest American War on I-4 women's basketball game ever. And you could argue one of the biggest women's basketball games in the program history, considering who you're playing and what's at stake.
10 p.m. on ESPNU, 9 p.m. local time out in Fort Worth. This is the first time for UCF in the American Athletic Conference championship game since 2019 when they lost to UConn. USF lost to UConn in their last trip in 2018, the year before that. UCF obviously made the at-large bid in 2018. Do they get that at-large bid now, regardless of tomorrow's result, Eric?
I think so. I'm not going to say 100% lock because I'm not going to pretend that I'm following the entire women's basketball landscape. Maybe Murph is. Maybe Murph could tell me what other conference steal bids possibilities are going on. I know the Big Ten is going on in women's basketball. But I got to believe that these two – what else these are the 2 best teams in the league. And basically UCF beat USF already in the regular season. I got to think that they're in. I got to believe it. But you hope they're shocked. But here's the thing. You don't have to worry about it if you beat USF. It's real that simple. And quite frankly, Jeff, I got to tell you, I think they're the favorites. I think the fact they're playing in a neutral court where, quite frankly, South Florida has struggled immensely shooting the basketball. We can get into this because I know you and I disagree. I don't know we haven't had Murph chime in on this, but this I think is going to be a factor in the men's tournament. It's a new arena. It's an arena where a lot of these teams have not played. Maybe Houston did earlier in the year and men's basketball did, but new backdrops. I think it's not great for shooters, and I think this works to the UCF's favor more than USF. USF has not adapted. They have not shot the ball well in their 2 wins. They were lucky to get past Wichita State and Tulane, and I just wonder – I don't know if they can find their shot all of a sudden on a third day, in the third game in a third day in a row. So I think UCF – and I think UCF's been looking forward to this game for a week. Don't you think, Jeff? I mean, don't you think that – they won't say it publicly, but even Abe said this in the postgame last Thursday. They felt they should have been co-champions. And I think deep down internally, they felt they were robbed. And I think I think they're secretly happy they get USF again.
Oh, I would imagine. So let's go ahead and listen real quick. We have Coach Abe and then Masseny Kaba right after the game. Here's sound from Coach Abe and Mas.
Yeah, Eric, you're smart. We just said that. I mean, it's kind of the same. We're a completely different game plan for other people, right? Which I like that, because it's hard to prepare for us. offensively, especially against our defense. And our defense is looking really good right now. And the players have really bought into that, and it starts, I'm always going to say it. And, Diamond and Moss and Tay, that defense they are stifling in it. They're just so good in it. So they know their rules. They know what they're supposed to do. They know how to pressure. They just know so much with that defense. So, it's going to be, fun to meet up with them again. And Jose's great. And, and it's a championship game. And so we got to bring a championship game.
Hey, I love it. We're going to go out, we're going to play, we played them in the past, week 2 times, but, we're going to go out there tomorrow. We're just going to play our game. We're going to play UCF basketball. If you're ready for a good game, tune in. That's all I could say. It's going to be a great game tomorrow.
Masseny Kaba doing a little programming work for the American there. Okay, so this I think was pretty interesting. Going back to what we talked about earlier. USF had that hot shooting first half against UCF, but then they went cold in the second half against the Knights in the game in Tampa that they eventually did pull out. Since then, all right, this is what USF has done from the field in their next after they won that game in Tampa. They shot 25% at UCF, 24% against Wichita State in the first game of the tournament, 27% tonight against Tulane in a game they won by only 4 points. And even though the 3-point shooting has been okay, they are really struggling right now, and it looks like they've run out of the juice that they had earlier in the season. USF, I think that right now, and you never know, momentum's only as good as last night's sleep, but right now it feels to me like UCF has a tremendous chip on their shoulder, and they cannot wait to get another shot at USF. And I'm not saying USF isn't going to be just as cranked up for this game as UCF will, but I don't know. There's just something about this that I would love to know what they would put the line at for this game, because I would really like. Yeah,
I'm trying.
Call
Jeff,
DraftKings.
I'm trying to find this.
I know, but I love UCF in this matchup, and me, guys. I don't like to. I'm nervous Nelly, of course, but
well, here's the thing about this matchup, and we saw this last week twice. The team that wins inside. The points in the paint and rebounding will win this basketball game. We can talk about the shooting all we want. To me, this matchup comes down to Munanga, their bigs over there at USF alongside Leverett, against Kaba and Brittany Smith. USF got the better end of that inside game. They won the rebounding battle and the points in the paint in Tampa. They won the game. Mm-hmm. In the second meeting in UCF, Kaba and UCF destroyed USF in the paint. To me, USF, the reason they've been winning in these 2 games ugly is because they've been getting offensive rebounds, second, third chance point opportunities. I think they crushed Tulane in the boards offensive rebounding wise. That's where this championship's going to get decided. Whichever front court wins that battle, whichever front court could stay out of foul trouble and win the battle in the paint and the boards, will end up with a championship, win a championship at the end of the night.
Murph, this is a historic defensive team that we're looking at right now. 49.2 points per game allowed. That is better than every other team in the history of Division I women's basketball in the NCAA, except for 12. For 12 teams. This is mind-blowing. This is a historic team we're looking at, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it just keeping track of that game tonight, there are stretches there where UCF's offense was on fire, not very stereotypically on fire. It's not usually what they do, but then they'll go cold and they'll not score for 6 minutes, and it won't matter because their defense is just so tight. You can't take advantage of that. Even with all the turnovers, the point off turnovers were even. So they do throw possessions away. They're kind of sloppy with the ball sometimes. This is the 6th time this year that UCF women have had 23 turnovers in a game. Exactly 23. They've only had more than 23 once, but they've had 23 6 times. And it doesn't matter when you still get stops at the other end. And that's all that Coach Abe has said. and press to her team. And she said it in the post-game press conference was that, we want to be better at that, but when that happens, we just got to get stops, and they've done that. And now, you've got a perfect situation with the rivalry game for a conference championship, for a title. You have, if UCF feels slighted in any way of how the regular season title was decided, I'm sure they'll bring that attitude to the floor. This could be, I don't know, you guys said before, this could be maybe a chippy game where, maybe someone gets attacked or someone lets it elbow.
Well, there was a double tech last week,
Jeff? There's a double tech last week, in the first half.
I think it's going to be a physical game. I think it's going to be chippy. It'll be interesting how the officials call this early. I'll be looking for that as well. But look, the stakes are high. And both sides, I'm sure, have heard this chatter. They've heard it. I'm sure USF is motivated by the fact that people like myself and others, rightfully so, have called out the championship. It's not against them. I mean, they deserve half the championship. All we're saying, and we wrote about it, is UCF deserves the other half. That's all. When both teams played on the court, they went 12-2. There was no forfeits there. And there will be no forfeits here. It's going to get decided on the court, but I think USF's going to be motivated. I think they're two motivated teams, and it's going to be fun. This is good for the league, I think, in the end. These are the two teams really that when UConn left, these were the two teams with the two coaches that you identified as being the flagship for the league. They have been the two best programs that have been chasing UConn. With all due respect to Cincinnati, I know they got to the championship last year, but that's a one-year thing. These have been the two best programs. They have the two best coaching staffs in the league. And I think we've said this in a previous podcast. I've said it. I think right now, Coach Abe against Coach Jose Fernandez is the best rivalry in the war of all the War and I-4 rivalries currently. They have the best rivalry. They have lifted this rivalry. This was not a rivalry. This was a one-sided deal prior to Abe's arrival. And she has made this a big-time rivalry. And it's exciting. Two completely different styles. And as they old say, as your idol, Murph, right? Bert Sugar used to say, what is it? The opposites create great fights? Or what was his old
Styles make fights.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Styles make fights.
Styles make fights. And you have a defensive team in UCF, or a team that their center of gravity is on defense. And then, of course, Jose Fernandez and the Bulls and that high-flying, hot-shooting offense, which has not been shooting well. Will they catch it this time? They're going to have to hurry and it's going to be a challenge against that UCF defense like we talked about. So tip-off for this game will be Thursday night, March the 11th at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. local time. Some late-night basketball. Busy night in Fort Worth for the American. That championship game will be carried on ESPNU. As for the men, we're going to talk about them in just a second because they're going to be part of that busy day of basketball in the American too. As they start their journey in the American Athletic Conference Men's Basketball Championship. We'll have a preview of that with Murph and Eric and yours truly when we return. This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy with you here as it is championship week in the American. We just got done previewing the American Athletic Conference Women's Basketball Championship, which will be, of course, Thursday night at 10 p.m. ESPNU will carry the game. But it's all American all the time on the U on Thursday because we got the first three games of the American Athletic Conference Men's Basketball Championship prior to the women's game. Noon, 3 and 7, you got Temple at USF at noon. You got Tulane, Tulsa at 3, followed by ECU, the number 11 seed, dead last in the conference against number 6, UCF, 7 p.m. So it's a UCF doubleheader on the U, boys. We got the men at 7, the women at 10, and UCF kicking off the men's tournament here. The winner moves on, that's game number 3. The winner moves on to face Memphis, who's the number 3 seed. That game would be at 10 p.m. on Friday on ESPNU. So, by the way, Memphis bumped down to 3 because of a half-court buzzer beater on the final shot of the American Athletic Conference regular season for Houston that won them that game over Memphis. So Houston bumps up to 2. Memphis drops to 3. Wichita State, despite playing like no games, is actually the number 1 seed in the tournament. And SMU is the 4. But here we are, Murph. Coach Dawkins and company are in Fort Worth now. And they're getting a rematch with ECU, whom they struggled against last time out. But that was without Brandon Mahan. That was without CJ Walker. Those 2 guys are back for the tournament, for the tournament, or at least we are expecting them to be back. Do we expect more of the same, or should this be, or is this a situation that UCF should handle pretty readily here?
I mean, it's always tournament basketball, right? So weird things happen. However, I think you will see a better performance because I thought one thing that they really lacked in that finale against ECU was rebounding. They really, and against Tulsa as well, when they also were missing CJ Walker. They missed opportunities to get, important rebounds to stop runs and to kind of stem the tide, as it were. With CJ Walker back, I know Brandon Mahan's a good scorer, a really good shooter this year. He made an all-conference team. That's great. I think CJ Walker's more important right now to this team. His defense, his rebounding ability, and his offense that has come along. I think that's going to be very important. That's something that UCLA really, really missed against ECU. So I would expect a better effort. I expect a more complete effort. But again, it's the tournament. It's the tournament. Things happen.
Yeah. Well, we got some postseason awards that got passed out as well, and Isaiah Adams was kind of like that. Was kind of the highest profile award that went to a UCF player from this year. He made the All Freshman team. By the way, the player they had co-players of the year: Quentin Grimes of Houston and Tyson Etienne of Wichita State. So, congrats to those guys. But as far as UCF awards went, Brandon Mahan and Darius Perry made the third team, which for some reason they put 6 guys on. And Isaiah Adams made the all freshman team. So I'm glad those guys got the recognition that they certainly deserved. I thought Darius Perry was really something this year. I thought he was the straw that stirred the drink. But this is just the tip of the iceberg for Isaiah Adams, isn't it? Because I feel like he's really stepping up his play late in the season, isn't he, Murph?
Yeah, I mean, 13 for 22 over the last 4 games from 3. I know that's a small sample, but, considering he was 7 for 35, heading into that stretch, it shows you how he has really sort of developed his game on the fly here as a freshman. And Johnny Dawkins said he's a kid growing into college basketball. And, for the freshmen especially, this has been such a detrimental year in terms of development as a basketball player because you didn't have the summer conditioning programs. You didn't have the time to really gel with any of your new teammates. So for freshmen, they had it really tough to, on the court. And you can see Isaiah, rebounding from, that sort of midseason swoon that he had along with the rest of the team and to really finishing strong. I mean, finishing strong outside, inside. He's shown good rebounding skills. He has shown good passing skills. He had a game with 5 assists recently. He's really, kind of blossoming here late, and it only portends good things for the future.
Yeah, against ECU, he was 6 of 13, including 3 of 6 from deep, 15.6 rebounds. Against Tulsa, or did I have that box score? No, I closed it for some stupid reason. But here it is. I got it. Against Tulsa, I thought he was just as effective, especially in the second half. 19 points, 3 rebounds, 7 of 13 from the field, 1 steal and 1 block. And I feel like he's gotten the smoothness back in his game from that we hadn't seen, I think, since the Florida State game. Now they had Mahan out. Is there any word on? We know about why CJ Walker was out was because he stepped on people's ankles a couple too many times. But what about Mahan? What was the situation with him? Do we know about that?
No, it's a personal issue. I mean, even after the finale against ECU, Coach Dawkins, said openly that he would expect Brandon Mahan to be back, and that was when still we didn't know if CJ Walker was going to play in this game. So It's been expected that Brandon would play, on Thursday. We don't know why he was missing, but whatever it is, it's been handled, and he is back with the team. I will be interested to see if CJ Walker is given his normal minutes, is able to move like we know he can move and jump and explode like he can off of that bad ankle. Because there was some question even heading into this week about whether or not he would even play. And so Dawkins is signed off on that, but okay, well, he's going to play. How's he going to look? I'll be interested to see.
So let me ask you, Murph, and I know you're not a fan of speculation.
No.
So Eric, feel free to chime in if Murph Ralph's on my question
in his
here.
brand. It's just going to be in his new T-shirt coming out.
Yeah, we're gonna get a T-shirt with a Murph quote in there. So what would be considered a successful run in this tournament? Would it be one win against East Carolina, and then if they lose to Memphis in the quarterfinals, that's okay? Or do you think that they would, or would they be disappointed by that result? Because as good as Memphis is, it's not Memphis. It feels like it's what would Johnny Dawkins and his team be satisfied with looking back on this effort?
Okay, so like Johnny Dawkins is going to say we're going there to win a championship, and to their credit, like if you look at their last 8 games, guys, and I think this is the one stat that kind of blows me away.
6 of the last 8
games. 6 of the last 8. The 2 losses were 1-point losses to the regular season champion. So so even those losses were there was a loss to Cincinnati. Excuse me, 1 loss Wichita State, 1 loss to Cincinnati by 1 point. If you look at those losses, they were good games too. I think the stat that stands out the most in that stretch was the fact that before that, 13 games before that, assisted turnover margin was minus 64, minus 65. Since then, it's plus 11. That's a massive difference. It shows you how well this team is in rhythm as far as sharing the ball, playing more connected, more cohesive, the things that happen over the course of a season with any team. And, obviously COVID, ruined that for a lot of teams, everyone in this conference, basically. But UCF has rebounded and played its best basketball. They feel like after what we've seen, that they can, do really, really good things, big things. But for the rest, we want to be realistic. This ride, it would be surprising to me if it goes past Friday. I mean, they should handle East Carolina, as long as they can keep Jaden Gardner from completely taking over and going like 30-20, they should be fine. And they play their game and don't shoot themselves in the foot. They should. I know. So Memphis is not Memphis in they're not like the Calipari, Derrick Rose Memphis teams. This is still right now possibly an instant team though. Memphis has gotten extremely good. They've only lost 1 game since mid-January. They only lost 2 games since mid-January. One of them was the buzzer beater against Houston last week. So I just think that with Moussa Cisse down low for Memphis, it's a lot for UCF to handle on the block. And then they press you, as we've seen. They press you and they get after you defensively so hard with so much athleticism. I think UCF, even on their best day, is still going to be forced into too many mistakes to overcome the Memphis Tigers. I would be shocked if they won. I would be somewhat surprised if they lost by less than 10.
Eric, wow.
Woo!
Eric, what do you think? Do they have a shot? Do they have a shot to get to the semis here?
The problem, first of all, no. Murph, you gave a great stat. You were a guest on our friends, the Sons of UCF Live show with Adam Eaton, Trace Trelko, and Mike. You gave a great stat about UCF and their struggles historically in the conference tournament. You remember where I think you said they have only reached the semis once since, right?
Yeah, I'm not even sure about that. Like, is it once or zero? Like, it's either once or zero that they've reached the semis of a conference tournament since they won the ASUN in 2005.
Wow. Yeah, I think the one you're thinking about was the year they made the NIT Final Four. They got to the semis of the American.
No, I was looking at conference. I was only looking at conference titles, conference tournaments.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But
they made the semis that year where they made the NIT. They got to the semis in the conference tournament. in the American. Yeah. I think that's the only time. Even the 07 team that was a 2 seed, they got upset by Rice and CUSA. They've never been well. Yeah.
First round knockouts and their first round knockouts under Donnie Jones. Just none of them but first round knockouts. And obviously,
right. Now, in fairness, a lot of them were in Memphis, so which has been the house of horrors. So let's be real.
Well, there was that. I'll never forget that the 22 win team that Kirk Speraw had that finished second in Conference USA behind Memphis, and they lost by 2 in their opener to Rice in Memphis.
Morris Allman. UCF got cold in the last 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yep, and not only did they fail to make the NCAA tournament, they didn't even get an NIT bid.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that. I'm still very pissed about that. Because they should have been if this was like 2 years ago, they would have been an NIT team. But that's a whole other story. Plus, the administration at UCF was pathetic back then. So here's the problem that UCF has. They're in the wrong side of the bracket. Yeah. If UCF was a 5 seed, I actually would like their chances. Yeah. And it really stinks because you could argue they're 2 shots away from being a 5 seed. If they would have held on at Wichita, they probably or make the shot against Wichita at home or whatever. You could pick whatever scenario you want. They were that close. Because I think they could certainly beat Cincinnati if they had to play them. SMU, Wichita State doesn't scare me at all. I think Wichita is going to get upset in this tournament early. But the problem for UCF is they're in the wrong bracket. Even if you believe they could beat Memphis, even if you believe that, hey, the third time's the charm, they probably then are going to have to go through Houston. And I just don't see this team beating Memphis and Houston back-to-back days. I just don't think so. I think Houston and Memphis personally are the 2 best teams in the conference. So unfortunately, no, I think they're in the wrong side of the bracket. And I agree with Murph. I think Memphis is a bad matchup because they could press UCF. They have so many bodies they could throw at UCF. And remember, UCF's going to have to play on a second day in a row, whereas Memphis will be fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kills your legs even further. We're so accustomed to crazy things happening in tournament basketball, but I don't know of a matchup that's more assured in this conference tournament than the Memphis-Houston semi on Saturday. That just seems like a fait accompli. Absolutely.
Oh boy, mark down the date and time you said that, Murph.
No, but I
you never know.
I will back Murph up on the cliff there. I will back him there in that I do think that. I think the bracket that might explode is the top half. I think Wichita State. I think SMU. SMU is the wild card in all this. We have no idea what we're going to get out of SMU. We haven't seen SMU play since Tom Brady was playing in the Super Bowl, right? I mean,
yeah.
So they're kind of the wild
and there they are
card.
At the 4 seed.
Right, which is, don't even get me. I mean, it's just kind of crazy, but whatever. And then Wichita State, I feel bad that I'm disrespecting because what they've done has been pretty remarkable considering what they have gone through with Greg Marshall being dismissed and that scandal, and then with an interim coach winning Coach of the Year. I mean, this is amazing. But that being said, I mean, Murph, am I wrong? UCF should have beaten them twice. Should have beat them, especially at Wichita.
You can if you wanted to be generous, you could have given Wichita State the win here in Orlando. It was a close game back and forth, but I felt like Wichita State had the better of that game. There is absolutely no way UCF should have lost at Wichita State. That game was in hand.
Yeah,
that game was in hand both late in regulation and in the first overtime, and they blew both chances. I mean, it was awful. They had that game cinched up. So. I don't believe in Wichita State either. Which, by the way, neither does the net or any of the bracketologists, which basically say that even though Wichita State is the regular season champion, they must win this tournament to get into the NCAAs. That certainly isn't true for Houston, which is going to be either a 2 or 3 seed. And if Memphis beats Houston on Saturday, you could see a game where if Memphis even loses the final, they could still get in. Memphis is on the bubble, certainly. But if they beat Houston and lose, on the final to somebody, they could still get in. Wichita State has no room for error. Even though they're the champion, they have no room for error. They do not have a good enough schedule. They must win. But again, that doesn't take anything away from what they've done. We talked about how this year has been so much about lack of cohesiveness and lack of continuity. No team entered this season with more. I mean, few teams in the nation had less continuity entering this year than Wichita State, which not only because of Greg Marshall firing or resigning, whatever you want to call it, but the fact that basically half their team left in the process. They've done amazing a job.
Yeah. Credit to their staff who pulled it together. Even though, had they played more games, I don't know if they would have finished in first place, but they did, and they can take it to the bank. So UCF comes into tomorrow's game 10-11 overall, 8-10 in the conference. It would be nice to get to 500. It would.
They're 2-3 shots away from being 12-9, 13-8, and being a top 4 seed.
Yeah,
that's that close. Even with all that, everything they've gone through, that's how thin of an. It's really that close of a season. For some reason, people think it feels like it's a bad season, but it really isn't. If you really dissect it, they're really 2-3 shots away from being 12-9, 13-8, top 4 seed, and maybe we're talking about, hey, maybe they can make a postseason tournament here with a win or two. But it is what it is. I will say this: if you're the league, you're anti-Houston in this tournament, right? Because if somebody other than Houston wins the conference tournament, you're going to be guaranteed a multiple bid league.
Right.
And I will say, and I do think this is a wide open field from that standpoint. And Johnny Dawkins said so in his media availability. He thinks this is as wide open as it is in the conference tournament, that anybody can win it.
It's a great league. I think it shows that every single year from top to bottom, anyone is capable of beating anyone. I think you saw that with East Carolina. They beat Houston. So so from top to bottom, that anyone's capable of winning in a game, in this league. And that's what you want, a league that has good depth like that. And so this year being unusual with COVID, I think it probably threw a wrinkle in a lot of programs is what they were trying to accomplish. But still, looking at some of the wins that some of the teams have been able to attain, it just shows that anyone is going to have opportunity. The field to me will be wide open when they throw it up on Thursday. And it wouldn't surprise me if any of the teams couldn't come out victorious.
That again goes back to the problem that you were saying, Eric, about how UCF's basically on the wrong end of the bracket. If they were to get that upset, obviously we're putting the cart before the horse here, but they get through ECU. If they were to get that upset over Memphis, that would just be such a huge confidence builder, I think, for the program in general.
But I want to focus on ECU. I'm not as confident as Murph is about the ECU game because a Jalen Gardner guy in a conference tournament game can make a one-game deal can make the difference. It's not like UCF has blown ECU away in their 2 meetings. So let's just.
True, but let's say the one in Greenville, they were really shorthanded.
Right. Agreed.
Basically playing with one hand tied behind their back. The 7-point game in Orlando, I thought that UCF kind of.
They were up by 20. They were up by 20 points in that game.
The weird thing is, though, this is the same. If this team beat Houston somehow.
How did
that happen? Except that I think what happened, they played in Greenville in a weird random day, I guess. I don't know.
Well, didn't also ECU? I think didn't ECU a couple of years ago beat Cincinnati when they were a top seed with Jaron Cumberland?
Right.
Look, I think the lesson here is don't go to Greenville at the end of the year. No one wants to go. It's a bad trip.
UCF went there and got the win.
Yeah, right.
So
I
don't know, man.
No. Eric, I said as long as Jaden Gardner doesn't go for 30 and 20, I think UCF is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
right.
Hope you're right.
I know. Me too. Well, that game is scheduled for 7 p.m. on ESPNU at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. You can watch that game on ESPNU or via your ESPN Plus subscription, followed, of course, by the UCF women's basketball game, the Conference Tournament Championship at 10 p.m. So a double dip of UCF on ESPNU, 7 p.m. for the men in their first game of the AAC Championship, 10 p.m. for the women in the final. What an evening of basketball.
I wonder, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. Would the men even be allowed to sit in the stands to watch the women's championship game and support them, or do they have to leave the court, the premise? I'm being serious. I don't even know what the protocol.
That's a good question. I have no idea. I would imagine they would probably have to leave the premises.
I mean, no one's allowed. I mean, very few people are allowed on the floor at all. I can tell you firsthand that there's no media allowed on the floor. So I think they want as few people as close to the floor as possible, including players.
Which is a bummer. Yeah. But man, that would have been so cool if you had the men's team right out there, fresh off a win if they got the win against ECU, fresh off that dub,
which could make
coming
a
out
difference.
to the stands. That could make a huge difference. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to be watching for that. And if UCF does indeed defeat ECU, they would play Memphis Friday at 10 p.m. Also on ESPNU. Semifinals.
A lot of late nights, Murph. Late night with the Murph, huh?
Jeff, that Memphis game wouldn't be over till like midnight, early Saturday morning, whatever. If they beat Memphis, are we doing an emergency pod?
Eastern time. If they beat Memphis, are we doing an emergency pod? No.
Yeah.
What if the women win the championship? Are we doing an emergency pod?
That I might be in favor of that.
Whoa!
I might be in favor of that. We'll have to see. So.
Murph, bring your favorite beverage late night.
Oh baby, I got.
We might do a night shift.
Mark on deck.
Old fashioned ready, right, Murph?
Go all the time. Even
all right, here,
midnight.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that for you. And again, hey, if we have a night shift tomorrow night, it means it's a good night. All right. When we get back, we got lots to talk about around the other sports: soccer, volleyball, baseball, softball. Huge week for UCF Softball. We'll tell you who they knocked off and how big it is for the program when we return. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We're back after this. We're back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you. Follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you would find Eric Lopez recapping the UCF softball team's huge upset win over the Arizona Wildcats, the number 2 ranked Arizona Wildcats, 2-0 on Monday night. Eric Lopez was there calling the game for ESPN+. Gianna Mancha, Eric Lopez, a star in the making, isn't she? She goes the distance, gives up gives up no runs, walks only 2, 3 hits given up, strikes out 9. This is the number 2 team in the country with at least one Olympian on their roster. Yep. And she took care of them in short order. UCF got their first run on a little small ball, bases loaded walk. And then Georgia Blair gave him some insurance in the 5th on that RBI double to center that scored Denali Shophocker. And that was more than enough for Gianna Mancha. What a moment for the program. What a moment for Coach Bear. And this team, which now stands at 13-3 overall, and is ranked now, right, Eric Lopez? I mean, they're getting some serious. They should get some serious national attention. How quickly are they going to move up their rankings now?
Well, it depends how they fare this weekend, but obviously the Arizona win that's gonna carry over the whole year. I mean, not too many teams are gonna beat Arizona. Arizona is a national title contender. You mentioned the Olympian Deja Mulapula, who is the star catcher. She's going to be on the Olympic team this summer in Tokyo. Might be the front runner for National Player of the Year right now. It's probably the best catcher I've seen in person in the 15 years of softball. And they've got All-Americans after All-American in that lineup. And that's what shocked me is that Gianna Mancha shut them down completely. Shut them out. It's the first time they've been shut out in 2 years. It was a masterful performance. Arizona couldn't figure her out. And it's the signature win in the Sydney Ball era. That's the blueprint there. That win will be remembered forever. And the 15-year anniversary of the complex actually will be this Sunday. And I will have an article out on Sunday with the 15 greatest moments. I won't spoil it, but this will be right up there. Probably the greatest regular season win at home in program history. Maybe the greatest regular season win, period. Because it's Arizona. This is as I wrote on the recap of the game, they're the New York Yankees of college softball. When you beat them, that's big news. I mean, 8 national titles, the winningest head coach in the history of the sport, and Mike Condrea. To beat them, That's a huge moment there, and it worked out on Monday, being the big game of the day, and the fact that the game was telecast on ESPN Plus. More people, and I can tell you this, I know there's some of you out there that are skeptical about the ESPN deal, and he should have gotten more money. I'm telling you, the exposure has been a huge difference, not just for softball, but for all the UCF sports. There are more people right now, more eyeballs on UCF sports than there ever has been. I had over 300 messages after the game. There are people nationally that are watching this game because it's on a national platform with ESPN Plus. Ask the NHL. They just struck a deal. They're going to be on ESPN Plus. So you add all of that up. It's a day that will never be forgotten. It's a monumental moment. Now what they got to do is put it behind them and forget about it.
Yeah, right. It's in the past now.
You're right, because you don't want that to go to waste. So you got to build the momentum, starting with FIU at home to conclude this homestand, and then you go on the road to play FAU and so forth, and can build that momentum and move up the rankings and maybe put yourself in a position to be in the conversation to host a regional.
What's the story right now with FIU, who is coming here on Thursday, followed by FAU Saturday, and then a doubleheader on Sunday? What can we expect from those two teams?
Well, FIU's a scrappy team. They're in a new head coach in her second year. They're 5-10, but they've lost like 7 games by 1 run, so it's a little misleading. So again, I'm curious to see how UCF comes out after that emotional win against Arizona. Are they flat? Do they come out and take care of business? And then FAU, they're kind of struggling. Joan Joyce, the longtime head coach there. This used to be a big rivalry game when back in the A-Sun days, in the early days of UCF softball from 02 to 05. They're playing in Boca. It's always a tough place to play. A lot of history there, as you know, Jeffrey. There, ironically, being at the 20th season of the program, they won their first conference title there on that very stadium in 2005. So, but again, they're going to have a target on their back because they're ranked. And that's going to be the key. And I think the big question with this team is Gianna Mancha has shown now they got a 1-2 punch with Aaliyah and Mancha, very similar to Mackenzie Audis and Shelby Turnier in 2015. I don't think they're as good as that 1-2 punch in 15, but they don't have to be with this offense behind them. They've got 2 legit pitchers, and I think the next step now is, can they get Brianna Vasquez going again? She has struggled early this year. If they can get her pitching to her abilities, they could have a strong rotation here moving forward. I think that's the big question with this team moving forward is, can they get Bree back on track to be that 1-2-3 punch that they're hoping for before conference play starts here at the end of the month? And remember, conference play this year will be a 4-game series.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need that third arm to get them through those tough conference sort of ringers that they're having to go through here. They got a couple more matchups with some ranked teams coming up before they hit conference play, South Carolina and Florida too, but that's not till later on in the month. In the meantime, they will play UNF on St. Patrick's Day in a doubleheader as well, but that'll be in Jacksonville at 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. That'll be before the next time we come on to record our next podcast. So
that'll be big. But again. Huge moment, Arizona. I mean, it's a landmark win. And if you don't believe me, listen to what G. Mancha and Coach Bear said after the game about the win.
We talked about having some heart, and I think we really had that today, and we were side by side with each other all day long. So I think that kind of showed us, like, we can hang, and we're here to play.
We talked a little bit about it last night, and then this morning we had a pregame meeting, and it was really just about the willingness and eagerness and having an edge, and just the ability to put that into action, and have our leaders. We have a leadership team, for them to be reminders in the dugout and on the field. Our coaching staff, I told them, when we get to pass the team to the leadership team, that to me is I've won as a coach, and I felt that today. So I love how they responded, and they just do what we ask. They're such a great group.
There you heard it, Coach Bear. You imagine what's going through her mind. Somebody who was obviously in the West Coast, played at Pacific, coached in the Pac-12 at Washington to beat Arizona. I mean, it's huge for her. her name, we talked about the job that Coach Abe has done in women's basketball, the job Coach Ball Malone has done in softball. These are two hot names in the coaching industry right now. You could argue reside in UCF. The hottest name in women's basketball is in UCF, and the hottest name in softball right now is at UCF coaching. That's, it's a huge landmark win for her in the program. But when you beat a Mike Kendrea-led Arizona team.
That's big, man. That's huge. It's going to be it's a big springboard, but again, like you were talking about, you can't spoil the momentum after that. And as big as that win is, you got to find a way to package it up and not let it get too much to you, because it can come apart really quickly if you're not careful. Let's pretend that wasn't a segue to UCF baseball, which is 4-8 right now on the season. Coming off of a victory tonight, though, they went up to North Florida and Jacksonville, beat the Ospreys 10-0. But this is on the heels of getting swept at home by Liberty. In two of those games were one-run games, but it was just the runs just weren't coming, Brian Murphy, for this team. I was about to drop the cliche that we both hate, right? Like, why didn't they save some of tonight's runs for the previous weekend or some stupid thing like that? But I mean, at least the bats woke up tonight. But I want to talk about the Liberty series first, because they come off the 2 out of 3 against Ole Miss, lose that close one at Stetson, but it was a close one. It was a really competitive game. Stetson's really good. They have a really good pitching staff, and then this Liberty series happens, and it feels like the wheels came off of the offense. What happened?
Yeah, it was. And again, it's this is where I was going to drop. It's not what you want, but since we wasted it back in the intro of the show, I feel like I'm killing time. I was really impressed with Liberty's pitchers, and even Greg Lovelady said after the game about how some of the stuff that they were throwing out there, some of the best stuff they've seen all season. And considering that they thrown Stetson out there and they saw Ole Miss, it is a high compliment, and I don't think it's just hot air. I mean. I think it was Frazier Ellard who was most impressive for Liberty. He's a guy in Liberty who was throwing 96 with an 81-mile-an-hour sharp slider. It was really nasty. So good. And so they got beat by really good pitching, and they could not get any hits going with runners in scoring position. They struck out 37 times in 3 games. 16 of those 37 Ks were looking, which just makes me feel like they were just confused, kind of guessing. They were in between. They weren't picking up the spin of the ball. So many, it seemed like they were all out of sorts offensively. Now it's 3-8, and people are like, "What's going on?" And tonight's win over North Florida, as UCF continues their run through the A-Sun. With Stetson, Liberty, and now North Florida. It's a nice win. I think it was nice to see Pablo Ruiz hit a home run tonight. I think he's been off to a slow start because of a preseason injury, but. He's a guy who is going to be a big bat for this lineup. The most important development was a UCF Knight making his debut, Kenny Surwa, who transferred in from Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, over the summer. Through 3 innings, gave 1 hit tonight in his debut. He is either going to slot in as a 4th starter, during those conference weekends when we're going to have 4 games, or maybe more valuably, as a bulk reliever out of the bullpen. Because right now, one of the issues I have with this team right now is their bullpen and just the lack of. I think there's a lack of trust here and the lack of reliable arms that Greg Lovelady has in his bullpen right now, and we saw that over the weekend against Liberty. And I just think that that's not usually what Greg Lovelady's teams are made out of. Usually, he depends on shortening games to 6 innings and then coming at you with a cavalcade of strong relievers. And right now, there's a few out there like Zach Hunsaker, David Litchfield, but Jackson Clare's been up and down. There's not a whole lot of trust in that bullpen, and I believe that's the one major issue with this team. There are others that I do plan to write about on the site coming up before Friday's Game 2 against North Florida.
Cheap plug.
The one major issue for this team right now is I think it's pretty short on reliable bullpen arms.
Well, they weren't short on bullpen arms tonight, which is actually nice to see, because they had, 6 guys throw an inning each after Surwell got the start. Nolan Lepkowski, by the way, got officially was the pitcher of record for the win because he pitched the fifth. But everyone else, no one gave up more than one hit. Nobody faced more than 5 batters, so I think that was pretty good. You're talking about Billy McKay, Ben Vespi, Ryan Saltonstall was out there, Nick Vieira, and then Nick Gatilla finished it off.
It's really good to see those guys, especially guys like Vieira, who we hadn't seen this year at all. Saltonstall made 1 appearance. Lepkowski's made 1 appearance. By the way, he's throwing 95 again after coming back from a couple of injuries.
That is what you
want.
want.
Those guys haven't gotten much work. That is what you want. And those guys haven't gotten much work at all. So, yes, it was low leverage, blowout late in a midweek game, but you got to get those guys some work because you can't – this team cannot make it through this conference with 8 or 9 dependable pitchers, including a rotation. You just can't do it.
Especially with a 4-game series in conference coming up, Murph.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be tiring guys out. So it's really important. I mean, it's really important they get Jack Sinclair, stable, and he was so good against Stetson last week, and then he was more up and down this weekend against Liberty with his control. If he's good, then I think that changes the pen. But Sirwah's inclusion is big too. It is.
Yeah. All right. So that's the first of 4 that they have against the Ospreys this week. Now we're going to have a day off. Then UCF and UNF play again on Friday at 6 on ESPN Plus at home at John Juliano Park. Yours truly will be on the call for that, or at least I'm planning to, unless UCF men's basketball loses to ECU, in which case Mark Daniels will be on the call. But hey, go Knights, right?
By the way, I want to point out because people are freaking out about the 3-8 record. Coming into tonight's game. And even North Florida has picked off games this year against Georgia and FSU, although I'm not sure if FSU is any good. They may actually not be at all. But if you look at FAU, the first series of the year, they've went on to beat Florida. They're 8-3. Stetson, yes, they were 10-0, and now they've lost 4 and they've lost since. And 3 of the 4 losses for Stetson since their 10-0 start were to USF. They got swept by the Bulls over the weekend. And then Liberty beat North Carolina tonight. So Liberty got off to a rough start at the beginning of the year, but sweeping UCF and now beat North Carolina tonight. I think Liberty's better than I expected going into that weekend. I think FAU's really good. Stetson's very good. It's not like UCF is losing to a bunch of patsies.
Right.
Well, the other thing is, in kind of listening and reading some of the college baseball people, with the extra year of eligibility, because I know this is the case in softball too to some extent, but maybe even just more so in baseball. There's always been parity in baseball. It's a random sport. Anything can happen. You add the extra year eligibility, the expanded rosters. I think the narrow margin between the 20th, the 5th best team and the 60th best team is very small, isn't it, Brian? I mean, in baseball, and I think we're going to see more of these kind of like, whoa, did you believe that result? And up and down results throughout the year. It could be a really wacky college baseball season because of that.
I think we have already seen it. We certainly saw in the first weekend when we had I think every top 5 team lost at least 1 game in the first weekend of the year. And if you look at the standings nationally, like, it's a lot of powerhouses, a lot of SEC, and it's all SEC at the top. But I think you're right, Eric, because of the fact that the shortened draft and the extra year means more players who were either fringe minor leaguers, maybe could have gotten to a 10-round draft or a 15-round draft. They're coming back to those schools, to those Power 6 schools, as it were, or the group of 5 schools. Meanwhile, the top teams are still losing their best players. I mean, those best players are going to go regardless. So those top teams are losing their best guys, whereas the second-tier guys who are littered across the landscape came back. I can tell you right now that if the draft was even 10 rounds, I don't think UCF would have Alex Freeland on this team. I don't think they would have John Montez on this team, who's been playing third base a few times, some second base. He's hit well in a couple of games, but Freeland's been a star for this team. Now batting second, showing gap to gap, ability, hitting with a great batting eye, draws a lot of walks. He would not be on this team if it was a 10-round draft, even that. So because of that shortened draft you have a lot of teams across the nation bringing back a lot of talent, and plus the extra year that you wouldn't otherwise. And so, yes, you're going to have a lot of parity because the talent pool is more evenly spread out. But again, right now, it looks like the SEC. The SEC is pretty ridiculous.
What else is new?
Right. So, all right. So it's this weird double home and home with UNF. Home Friday at 6 on ESPN Plus. Back on the road in Jayville on Saturday at 5, and that game was streamed through UNF's site before they play again in Orlando on Sunday at 2 on ESPN Plus. So, boy, this is weird. I know UCF has done this kind of stuff before, but I can't remember exactly when. It's just it is kind of bizarre
because you don't want a ton of midweek games. So we're cramming all those usual midweek games into the weekends, and we're splitting it, so that each team gets their home and homes.
Yeah, there you go. So, and then Tuesday 6 p.m. FAU at home ESPN Plus before UCF gets a shot at Jacksonville next weekend. 2 games at Jacksonville before coming back home for one here in Orlando. All right, so there's baseball for you. Volleyball. All right, I want to get back. I want to dive into volleyball real quick here because first things first. We got to talk about the stupid RPI that came out. All right, so UCF Volleyball right now, all right, off to a great start as we've talked about in previous episodes. They sweep East Carolina up in Greenville to go to 10-1 on the season. Lost only one set. Was pretty dominant the entire way. This is the big conference weekend coming up right here. Now they have 4 matches left in the regular season. Again, boy, what a quick regular season. We just started volleyball. Now it's coming to the end. They're at Cincinnati Friday and Saturday, 1 p.m. each time. No word on streaming this, by the way. But anyway, Cincinnati obviously doesn't have Jordan Thompson anymore, but they do have Maria Mallon, who who we saw last year. It was like, wow, she's the next one at Cincinnati. But we felt like she still had some things that she had to work on, right? Well, she's apparently worked on because she's again one of the top players in terms of kills in the American. So this is going to be 2 really tough matches against Cincinnati up there where they're going to host the conference tournament. Don't forget, Cincinnati just knocked off USF in conference play in 5. Adria Oliver is the reigning conference offensive player of the week. So this is a team that no longer has to rely on Jordan Thompson as much as they used to, but they're still really, really good, and they're going to be difficult to handle. Kirsten Ficker has also turned into a real weapon for them, and yeah, like I said, between Mallon and the supporting cast that they have over there, this is going to be a tough, and Adria Oliver in particular, and Madison Waters, this is going to be a really, really tough act for UCF to do. They're going to find out exactly where they are. Now, back to this RPI situation. So the first
both matches on ESPN Plus, by the I
Oh, they are on ESPN Plus? Okay. Because
most conferences are on ESPN Plus. So
gotcha. Okay. I didn't see anything on there, so I wasn't sure. But thank you for that. Let's talk about this really stupid RPI that just came out. So
there we go.
All right. Gentlemen, we know who the powers in college volleyball are, right? Pretty much the entire Pac-12. Texas, you got your Big Ten teams and everything. Care to guess who the number 1 team in the March 7th RPI is in volleyball?
I'm looking, so I won't spoil it.
Don't. Just take a wild guess, Eric Lopez.
Gotta be Nebraska's or the Big Ten or somebody in Pac-12, right?
Oh, that's hilarious. No, it's UNLV out of the Mountain West with a 7-0 record. You know who's number 2?
I do, actually, so I won't say.
Okay. Army, who, by the way, listen, congrats to Army, right? But you're 1-1 on the season. 1-1. All right. Number 3. Anyone? I'll give you a hint. They're 13-0 on the season.
And they're beneath the they're beneath the team that's 1-1.
Correct.
It was a hell of a one, though.
It was one hell of a one.
All right, who was it?
Bowling Green out of the MAC.
Powerhouse.
Number 4. This is your projected Final Four, according to the NCAA Women's RPI. UNLV, Army, Bowling Green, and this team.
Florida? No.
No, Campbell.
Of course. Louise Creek,
out
baby.
of the Big South, who, by the way, is 6-2 on this season.
We're learning. Now we know why basketball dumped the RPI.
Now, Florida State.
Don't
Florida State, who beat UCF in 5 earlier this year, is number 5 in the RPI at 8-3. Houston, by the way, is the top American team at number 6. They're 10-2 on the year. UCF is 22nd. There was no reason for them to actually drop this RPI, I don't think. When they should have just run the numbers, seen what came out, and been like, you know what? Never mind. Because we know how...
the season is almost over.
Right. The season's almost over, and this is what the situation looks like in college volleyball. Now, I'm sorry, but if there's one year when you just want to drop the rankings based on lack of usable data, this is it.
Where's Coley Matrix? Call him. He could fix this.
So
he's a person.
Mr.
Matrix.
Where's Coley? That would be Dr. Wesley Coley to you, Eric Lopez. But
that's right. He'll fix this.
But again, you got in your top 10, you got Charleston Southern, you got Jacksonville State, you got Towson in Western Kentucky, then Texas at 11, who's 17-0, by the way, Minnesota at 12, Providence at 13, Oregon. Oregon is the top-ranked Pac-12 team. They're 14th. So, I hope and pray that with 4 matches to go in UCF's regular season, I know they're 22nd, but please, NCAA, do not do what you've done every year in the past and basically rely on the RPI to fill in the blanks in the conference.
No, they're not going to do
NCAA tournament. They can't do that.
They're not going. No, they're not. Well, no. I mean, I think this shows why all the mathematic, fans.
No.
This is exposed. You just exposed it.
No. This isn't an indictment on all of the math. This is an indictment on this
is
year.
Kind of an important one. This is like the most important one. This is what they use.
This is an indictment on this year because there's just not enough data.
Now, Jeff, you understand that by talking about it as long as we have, we are doing their bidding because they put this out probably to create conversation. So
correct.
I feel like they've done their job here. I feel like the NCAA volleyball RPI has done their job.
I don't know if that's the case. They were probably planning on dropping an RPI anyway. It's just that the lack of data skews the formula, so throw it out. You don't have enough data.
Don't worry, they will. UCF's going to be in Gainesville like they would be regardless if they were the RPI had its full system data or not. They never believed in the RPI. They're going to go by geography. You know this, I know this. They're going to be let's just put UCF, let's just get the hotel ready to go in Gainesville and get UCF and UCF and Florida State will play in the first round. We know that's going to happen. That's the deal. Now, let's go back to what's more serious here, and this is the Cincinnati match. This is basically the winner wins the division,
right?
And that's it's big because if you're UCF, what's frustrating is you're probably going to have to. Now, let me ask you this: are you put the RPI aside? Are you a Houston believer? Do you believe Houston's a legitimate threat to win the conference? Because I think we've always come into the season thinking it's UCF and Cincinnati. Are you willing to put Houston in the conversation, or are you not sold yet?
I'm willing to put them in the conversation based on how well they've done out of conference. They split with a really good Rice team. And they did give Texas Tech a couple of matches there as well. So I'm not going to say that they're the odds-on favorite at this point because they're clearly not. But I wouldn't.
Would you pick them third? Would you be the third pick?
I'd put them third.
Okay, and the reason I bring that up is whoever loses, and if whoever finishes second between UCF and Cincinnati in this division is going to end up likely to play Houston, who's going to walk over and win the West. That's why this is one of the many reasons why this is a significant match for that reason. And if you're Cincinnati, this is a put up or shut up type of weekend for you. You're at home. You're facing UCF. People have doubted you that you can be successful without Jordan Thompson. Are you can you be a postseason team? I think this is their statement. This is their best chance to get a marquee win. Mm-hmm. If you're UCF, Jeff, obviously you want to win both. Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can put to bed any notion
Correct.
that there's any doubt about your preeminence in the East.
But I still think, would a split, though, if you take a split on the road, would you, if you had to settle for the split, I think you're okay? No?
Depends on how the split goes down. Like if you sweep them in the first match,
okay,
and then lose in 5 in the other, I'm gonna have a bit of I would have probably a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because I'll be like, something, we were probably 1 or 2 swings away from getting that sweep.
Right. It's a tough. I think it's tough to win 2 on the road, and Dodd has even said it's tough to win back-to-back period, regardless where you're playing. I do wonder if they split, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. What is the tiebreaker in that scenario? Now, Cincinnati goes to Temple. UCF hosts South Florida in that scenario, Remainer. But I'm curious what the tiebreaker would be. Obviously, if UCF took 2 games, I think it's all she wrote. But I do think it's important from the standpoint of you want to avoid Houston in the semis. I think Houston's the clear-cut team in the West. So I think that's significant. And look, like you just said, nobody knows. This is going to be the most entertaining, bizarre selection process when it comes to volleyball and soccer, because there is no – the RPI is drunk. The RPI is going to be drunk. So I have no idea how they're going to pick these teams. So if I'm UCF, if I'm Cincinnati, and this goes for soccer, the only way you can guarantee that you're going to be in the tournament is win your league and win the automatic bid. Yeah. Because there are no guarantees beyond that this year in those sports with such a quick little data. And it's so bizarre because you have certain teams that played in the fall, certain teams are playing conference only. It's just going to be crazy. I can't wait to see how they actually figure this out. They can't even figure it out on a normal year. How the hell do you expect them to figure it out on a year like this? These are idiots.
It's just going to be really
hire
weird.
Me. Just hire me.
I feel like Jeff and Eric have so much in common with how much Eric hates the softball selection committee and Jeff hates how Volleyball RPI is put together. I feel like that itself could be its own show. Like, just that alone. That
sounds like a night shift of special edition.
I think
Sunday,
I think maybe Todd and Bear would be the only people to actually listen to that show. I think that's it. We'd have an audience of 2.
But it's funny, Jeff. If Todd was right now with us in this room, he probably would tell both of us to shut up, right? Because he just wants to worry about beating Cincinnati and what he. I think, in all honesty, I've gotten to know Todd, and you know Todd a long time as well. I think that's the furthest thing from his mind right now. I think he's genuinely concerned about this Cincinnati team because he knows he's going to get the best out of Cincinnati this weekend. This is a big matchup.
I think that the overarching situation here is you cannot rest on your laurels about an at-large bid. Your goal is just to win the league. Just win the league. Pretend it's a one-bid league. Because again, it's a 48-team tournament this year.
Yep.
So you're more than likely, the Americans not going to get a second bid. So win the league outright. That's your goal.
And this is probably the rivalry of the league right now in volleyball, wouldn't you say?
Right. Oh yeah, based on the last 2-3 years, and especially after last year, the way last year ended on the home floor for UCF, definitely, it's definitely the preeminent rivalry right now in the American.
And what's crazy is UCF may have to beat Cincinnati 3 times on their court to win the regular season and the conference tournament title.
Entirely possible. If Cincinnati finishes as the East number 2, UCF finishes as East number 1, they would play. Well, Cincinnati at least right now would play. As it looks right now, it's East 1 versus West 2, West 1 versus East 2. So UCF would play Wichita State in the first round. Houston would play Cincinnati in the first round. The winners would face each other in the championship because it's a 4-team conference tournament this year. It's not the 6-teamer that it was last year where they protected the top 2 seeds. So, and again, like you said, it's on Cincinnati's floor, which the hosting goes to the previous year's regular season champion. So,
which I don't understand. How are they going to decide that this year? If, let's say, Houston and UCF both went undefeated, how do they decide that?
That's a good question. I'd have to ask Chuck about that. Because I'm not 100%. I think it might be. I know, poor Chuck Sullivan. Chuck, if you're listening, we love you, man. But Chuck Sullivan of the American, who by the way lives on his.
Chuck is in bed. Chuck is not listening. Chuck went to sleep. Like
fair point.
Good human being.
Somebody at the American tell Chuck that we're thinking about him here. I would imagine it would be top. It could be best overall win percentage. It could also be top finish in terms of the art. I don't know.
That's your assignment. That's your assignment, Jeff. Between now and next episode, get the answer there. let me and Murph know.
You talk to all your editors like this, anyway. So UCF against Cincinnati. Again, it's back to back in Cincinnati. Friday at 1, Saturday at 1. ESPN Plus. Eric Lopez informs me we'll be televising that match, and then weekend off. Following weekend, UCF and USF, we're on I-4 back-to-back, March 26th and 27th.
An improved South Florida team, by the way.
Yes, although they're still at 500 in the league right now, 3-3, but they can get hot here in a little bit. So we'll have to see how that shakes out with UCF getting a week off in between. By the way, star of the week for UCF Volleyball, Tally Marmon, who's just been killing it on service aces this year. She said she is actually leading the conference in aces right now with 8 over 12 sets, and is leading the conference in aces. UCF doesn't do the power serving game at all, but the Knights are leading the conference in service aces with 2.38 per set. That's half an ace more per set than Cincinnati at number 2. Which, if you ask Todd, like we said, UCF does not do power serving. They do basically location-based serving system, and this is remarkable what they've been able to do. So kudos to UCF on the service game, which among one of the many things that have been going well for them so far this season. All right, let's update you on soccer. It has been It was been a rough start to the season for the men's team, but they finally got off the schneid, Eric Lopez, on Saturday at home against Memphis. They get the win 2-1 at home. Yoni Sorokin and Ariel Hadar actually got 2 of the goals got the 2 goals that UCF needed. Memphis scored late, but it wasn't enough. And UCF, despite not putting up as many shots as they normally do, Eric, 10-7, still got the victory. Now, bear in mind, though, Memphis was playing a man down because they had a guy pick up 2 yellows. But whatever, UCF will take it. They're now 2-3 on the season. And have they gotten an RPI yet for soccer? Let's see how that disaster is going to look.
No, they have not.
No, they have not. Okay, good. They probably just shouldn't if anybody's interested on that. Although they do have, there is a site RPI update for men's soccer. That's a sort of a blogger site that's out there that shows how how a bunch of the teams are doing in the RPI, at least as of right now. Memphis is the top team in the RPI, at least currently. But again, this thing is all skewed, whatever. But they still get that win. They got the win when they needed to. And now they face SMU on the road on Saturday at 8 p.m. in a game that, if they're able to come out of Dallas with a win on ESPN Plus, that could flip the whole season in a hurry, couldn't it?
It could. It was a confidence for them to get the ball in the back of the net in the victory against Memphis. The big question is, do they get Yannick Ertl back, the goalkeeper? He's missed the last 2 matches for what Coach Calabrese described. Well, he didn't describe it. He said he can't talk about it. He just says it was not a discipline thing.
That's implied it's an injury of some kind.
Yeah. They're like hockey. They don't want to tell you what the issue is. So that's why he hasn't.
That's fine.
Say what?
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Just leads to a lot of speculation, but they need him back. Look, SMU's been unbelievable The SMU was ranked number. Now this is weird. For some reason, soccer only updates their rankings like every other week. They don't really. So SMU was ranked number 2 last week in the nation. Like they've been destroying teams. They beat South Florida 7-0. Memphis, but they beat Memphis 5-0. But they lost at Temple 2-0 last week. So they're going to be refocused. Look, we talked about the rivalry with UCF Cincinnati in volleyball. This is the rivalry in men's soccer. And as Scott Calabrese said, this is the match that they circle every year now in the league. And for them, they know the challenge with SMU.
It's exciting. They have been rolling. I think they smacked USF 7-0. Memphis 5-0. They've been rolling, and so we're gonna have to have a great plan to go there and to try to win that game, because they have an excellent team. Historically, that's been a big game for us. Every year we've met them in the final 3 straight times and come out the wrong side of that 3 straight times. So we've got it's a game that anybody that loves competing is looking forward to that game, and we're gonna look really close at the tape and what they're doing. We know them well, but they do have some new players. I think they've done a great job as usual in recruiting. Every year they get stronger. And even in the years where I thought, okay, we've gotten stronger, then we turn around and we play them. We're like, well, they got stronger too. So it's going to be a big game.
That was Scott Calabrese talking about the matchup with SMU, obviously, which is going to be big. I mean, it could turn the season around. You're right. The question's going to be, though, are they up for the challenge? They got to be sound defensively. Now, they did get Learman back for the Memphis match. That was huge. They've had some changes in the rosters, injuries, and so we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see, though, who the goalkeeper is going to be. Can Yannick be back healthy in that match? If not, then they got to go back to their youngster, obviously. It would be the 3rd straight start for him. So it's going to be interesting. I'm very interested to see how they come out with Matt Douglas being the goalkeeper. I was thinking about that's a tall order against that SMU firepower. But it would be something if they can knock him off and turn the season. But it's a big ask. SMU is still good. And we'll see if UCF can build some confidence. In talking to Calabrese after the match, you could just sense he wishes he had more a pre-conference. This is a team that is still trying to figure out who they are. And unfortunately, this is a bad year to try to figure out who you are during conference. That's the problem. And
But even so, they're only halfway through right now. So if you go 4-1, let's say you get one of the SMU games, you win the rest of them, right? Yeah. Then you're at 6-4. You get to the conference championship. You could be in a pretty good spot, no?
But they gotta get there, and that's easier said than done in this league. And he's got to find some. Ariel Hadar, who scored the goal, was somebody that's getting more playing time. He's not a starter, but he's getting more playing time because he's trying to find some offense. Who could put the ball in the back of the net. They don't have a Cal Jennings, who's now of LAFC, by the way.
That's right. That actually just broke yesterday. It was that Cal Jennings is moving up to MLS with LAFC, so he'll be wearing black and gold again.
Dude, Murph, you got to talk to your California connections. Get us a Cal Jennings LAFC jersey. All right, can you do that with your peeps over there?
I'm pretty sure I can make that happen. Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. What the hell are we doing, Orlando City? What the hell are you doing? Anyway, I'm really annoyed.
Eric never passes an opportunity to throw shade at Orlando City.
How is he not wearing Orlando City jersey? It's great. Anyway, so we'll see how they come out against SMU. But man, they got to get off to a good start because if they don't, it could be an avalanche. SMU is going to be. They're that is an up-tempo game. You remember this. These two teams like to fly. So it could be, if UCF doesn't come ready to play, it could be a 2, 3, 4 goal difference if they're not prepared. But I think they will, and it'll be exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of desperation, I think, on UCF's part right here. And again, another stupid sports cliche, but there's nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal right now. UCF is at 2-3. They know that that they have basically no margin for error the rest of the way. So, again, 8 p.m. at number 9 SMU in Dallas, ESPN Plus on Saturday, March the 13th. Mark your calendars for that one. Over on the women's side, they had a big game on the road at Memphis, but came up short 1-0 this past Sunday. Goal in the 56th minute by Grace Storty of Memphis was the difference. And Memphis peppered UCF with shots, 21 compared to the night 7, and yet UCF was right in it right to the very end. But this one kind of hurt a little bit, Eric, because now after that 2-0 start, they've lost 2 in a row on the road by 1 goal. And they're standing at 500 right now, 2-2, with ECU at home coming up on Sunday at 1. That's also on ESPN Plus. Where does this team stand now, UCF women's soccer? Because they're, unlike the men, right? They're only playing everyone in their conference once. So even though they have what should be some winnable games coming up, they were expecting to be better than 500 at the midway point right now. Is that right?
Well, the Tulsa loss hurts. The Memphis is a top 25 team. They're very good. Caroline Delisle is really kept them in the match. I mean, Memphis in particular in that first half controlled the action. They outshot them 13-2 in the first half. Chippy game, 23 combined fouls between the two teams. So very chippy, which is what you expect. These two teams are rivals for a long time. The tough part for them, not getting a lot of offense. They only had 1 corner opportunity. They just couldn't get anything going offensively. It reminded me of their Cincinnati match at home that they won. They really didn't create a lot of opportunities. So that's a concerning thing because they're going to have to score some goals, who steps in there. And I think that's, the tricky part about it. And this is a big match here Sunday against East Carolina because after that, you got to go to South Florida. And then you host SMU, which is never easy. So, they put themselves in a tough spot. I think Memphis is the best team in the league. I honestly think that the conference tournament is probably going to end up in Memphis. But again, as we talked about with these fall sports, man, the only short way to get into the tournament is by an automatic bid and winning that tournament. So if you're UCF right now, your goal is to get into the top 4 and be playing at your best at that point and hope you get that automatic bid. And I think she's still trying to find some answers too. That's the challenge with this. Volleyball benefited, and a credit to the volleyball coaches and being able to pull this off. They were able to get a couple of weeks in before conference. They were able to get some matches in. Soccer didn't. Soccer went straight to conference only. And then remember, she didn't even get an exhibition match because that got canceled. I think men's soccer had 1. I think that's hurt. It's hurt these two teams in particular. Granted, everybody's dealing with it, so you understand that. But this is when you have some young people that you're trying, like UCF and the women's side have questions on the back end with youth and stuff. You're going to have some growing pains, and unfortunately, on a sprint like this, you kind of dig yourself a bit of a hole here. So this East Carolina, that's where we're at. I think the regular season title is probably out the window because I think Memphis is the team to beat. Now, if you're UCF, what you got to focus in, make sure you lock up a top 4 spot, but it's got to start with a result here against East Carolina. You don't want to be in a situation where we're watching this match on Sunday and it's the 80th minute and it's scoreless and you're thinking, oh my God, we're headed for a draw.
Yeah. This is the hard part right now because ECU is right behind them in the standings at 4 points. UCF is actually tied with Memphis and USF with 6 points each, even though both of those teams are 2-0 in conference. UCF is 2-2. But these next 2 matches, ECU and USF obviously first in the standings. And we know what USF has done to UCF in the past. It's so freaking annoying. And then, at least as of right now, SMU and Houston, they're in the bottom of the league standings right now. But SMU hasn't even played a game yet officially. And then Houston's only played, and then Houston's 2-1-1, but 0-1 in the conference. We don't know what we're going to get from SMU, at least as of right now, because I don't know what's going on with that program.
They have the same issue with men's basketball. They've all been shut down.
Yeah,
that's
they've been shut down, but they haven't been shut down for good because the game has not been postponed or canceled yet. So
fingers crossed.
We'll see. I don't know what we're going to get from that one. So that's women's soccer. They're playing ECU, again, at home, 1 p.m. Sunday on ESPN+. Real quick to tennis. The men's tennis team right now, I wanted to pull up my ITA rankings because that's what I always do. Actually dropped it. I know. Dropped down 2 spots, number 21. Sorry, John Roddick. I'm going to do this every single time. Even though right now they are on a 4-match winning streak and they've lost only 1 match in all their dual matches in the last 4, knocking off UNF, FGCU, Stetson on Sunday. They beat FGCU 7-0 on Friday. Or that was February 26th. Never mind that. But they beat Sunday Sunday, March the 7th. They beat Stetson 7-0. Then they beat South Alabama on Tuesday. And this is important because South Alabama is receiving votes. That's a good team from USA that they were able to take care of. And now the situation looks like this for UCF men's tennis. They go on a little bit of a road trip now. They're at FAU on Saturday. Then they have some time out before they go to Florida State next Friday and then to Georgia on Sunday. So this FAU match on Saturday is kind of their last big tune-up before Tallahassee and Athens. And that's a big spot for them, isn't it, Eric?
It is. And I think there'll be ramifications, rankings, as you mentioned, and things like that. You're right. But they're rolling right now. They're playing. Both tennis teams are rolling at a high level. I'm kind of bummed out here because I was going to say, man, Murph might get to cover, maybe should cover the conference championships for tennis. It's here at the Lake Nona. We've been talking about going. That's the perfect time to go. One problem, it's the same weekend as the Oscars, and we already know where Murph stands on that. So
that's not gonna work, guys. It's not gonna
work. So that's not going to work for him. So one of these days we're going to find something that works. For God's sake,
got to make it happen.
Beautiful facility. Maybe it's you, Jeff. I don't know.
Brian Ormiston, we are coming. We promise.
Yes. And boy, he's going to let you have it, Murph. But anyway, so I think these two teams are strong.
Me and Borm are fine. I talked to Borm a couple of years ago. It's fine. We're good.
Years ago. We're good. We talked 20 years ago. We're good.
I saw him at a bar 2 years ago. We settled it. We settled it all. It's fine.
We settled it all. Okay, that's good to know.
Eric DeSalvo was doing trivia. He was hosting a trivia contest. We had to go there. Anyway, I feel like I brought this podcast to all.
Bormo, I want you to know you did this. Anyway.
They're really, there you go. Yeah, they're really good, Jeff. That's all I got right now. That's all I got.
So, all right. As far as the women's, all right, I got to restore order here now. As far as the women's tennis team is concerned, they're coming off a victory over FAU on Sunday. Back-to-back victories, in fact, recovered nicely after the loss to Texas. Beat number 24 Furman 4-3 on Saturday. Came back and beat FAU on Sunday, and now this Saturday they face UNF before they have about a 2-week break before they face SMU at home. So another good spot for them. Here's against UNF, and right now the women's team in the ITA Oracle rankings at number 16. They moved up 2 spots at 9-3. So again, this is right now North Carolina is actually having a good year in both women's and men's tennis. They're ranked number 1 in both, which is really something when you think about it. But yeah, here's UCF is right in the position where they want to be, right in the thick of the rankings, and that's with some pretty bulky opponents coming down the pike, including Oklahoma State and Oklahoma.
If they can get both of them, if they can get some more marquee wins, women's have definitely done that. If they can get marquee wins, who's to say? They're hosting the conference tournament here at Lake Nona. Who's to say they couldn't host perhaps some
NCAA.
of the rounds in the NCAA tournament in Orlando?
Yeah, quite possibly. By the way, Oklahoma State 22, Oklahoma 32 in the rankings when they get to those matches in the early part of April. But first things first, you got to take care of UNF at noon on Saturday. And yes, they do have the national campus court camps, which is great. So we can watch all the action taking place. I was actually checking some of that out for the FAU match on Sunday. It's awesome. I love how they do that. So thanks to the USTA National Campus for setting that up. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, there we are. We've got you all caught up. So Boom. Just like that.
One bit of like, this isn't news. This actually came out like a few hours ago, but I just saw this. There's something to watch in the AAC tournament come Friday for the which State will be without two. They just don't know which two players, which state will be missing because they're not going to release. So the top seed in the men's tournament will be without two players. Are they bench players?
So Wichita State's down two players.
Yes, because of COVID. Because of COVID, they're missing two players for this tournament. Are they like lightly used bench players, or could it be like the co-conference player of the year, Tyson Etienne, or Tariq Gilbert, or Dexter Dennis? Like that's kind of scary. So, Eric and I have already said we don't feel great about Wichita State in this tournament, and and
now you feel even less great about Wichita State in this tournament. All right. Well, there's some late breaking stuff.
Welcome to March Madness 2021, people.
I know.
This won't be the last
time. By the way, and now, by the way, for those who are listening, we're now recording this on March 11th. It's now after midnight.
It's now the morning of March 11th, Thursday. So later today, softball against FIU, men's basketball against ECU at 7 on ESPN Plus, followed by women's basketball in the conference championship later today, Thursday, against the 1-seed South Florida Bulls at 10 p.m. So
this is obviously the year anniversary of when everything shut down in sports, and it's just a good thing to remember that we are still in a global pandemic. Very much so.
Yes. So please act accordingly. Get your vaccines while you can, people. Come on, we have a football season that we got to get to at full capacity this year. We don't want 2020, 2021 to repeat itself ever again. So, folks, for all of us, please make sure you do that. Make sure you follow us also at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black Gold Banneret, and blackandgoldbanneret.com. Subscribe to our newsletter, which comes to your inbox every weekday at 9 a.m. sharp with the latest news from around the world of UCF sports, courtesy of our own Jeremy Brenner, who's been killing it on the newsletter. That's newsletter with a K. You can sign up via our Twitter account as well. And, of course, if you don't subscribe to the Black Gold Banneret podcast, first of all, you should. Make sure you subscribe to us there. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ring the bell on YouTube, and you'll get notified when we're going to go live with a night shift whenever something big goes down. Hopefully we get to do one later today, boys. UCF women's basketball against South Florida. We got a conference tournament championship at stake.
One can hope. Either that. If not, then I'll just call Bormo and make sure I'm good. I haven't talked to him in 5 years since the Indians made the World Series. So I got to make sure I'm in good terms.
I got to talk to Bormo, too.
Going full circle on the show, what about the UCF Baseball 2017 to decide a share of the conference title? Where's that game?
Forgot about that one there, pal.
Good one. That's good.
Rivalries. I mean, UCF beat USF in the park that was before it was known as John Giuliano Park on the last day of the regular season to win a share of the conference title.
Right. Ooh, that's a good one. I gotta think that's a good one. What do you think, Jeff? What do you think? Would you put that one ahead of the women's basketball champ? Wow, they're both champ. That's a good one. That's got to be in the conversation.
Let's see how tonight plays out.
Put 3 softball games ahead of it. Does it rank among any of the softball games?
Yeah, I'll rank it ahead of the two times they lost to USF. I'll rank it in front of those two.
All right. I think that's fair.
All right. I'll put it as I'll put it right there in the top 3. That's a fair one. Yeah, we'll go football. We'll put a softball, this basketball, and the baseball top 4. There you go. Yeah. So in no particular order except football number 1, obviously. I think we all agree football, the 17 games, number 1. But that baseball one, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I think I'd still rank this women's hoops one ahead of that one just because of what transpired with the way the regular season ended with the forfeit. No.
Let's see how tonight plays out.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, if they lose, maybe it's different. But also, this is only for a share of the regular season title and not, an outright conference tournament title, which I don't know. Maybe that's a little different. But, yeah, they would need to win first.
All right. Well, we'll be breaking down the basketball game, hopefully after a good result, perhaps after that game is over. 10 p.m. tip for that game, 9 p.m. local time, 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. All ESPNU all the time for UCF tomorrow night, 7 p.m. men, 10 p.m. women. All right, That'll do it for us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Like you said, if you don't follow us on social media, make sure you do it. Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. UCF _Banneret on Twitter, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com. Follow us individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, and Spokes_Murphy on Twitter as well. Subscribe to the newsletter and this podcast. Leave us a rating and tell your fellow UCF fan friends in Night Nation about us. Make sure they subscribe, and if you already do subscribe, leave a comment and leave a rating. Let everybody know how much you enjoy what we're doing for you guys here on the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. For Eric and Brian, I'm Jeff. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night on a night shift if UCF defeats USF. If not, follow us on Twitter. You'll get all the latest. For all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, enjoy the basketball tomorrow.